Welcome to the EXP Group's discussion on CIMA paper P1, Performance Operations. We're still in the general subject area of cost accounting systems, and we want to just have a quick look at planning and operational variances. Now, the main distinction to pay attention to here is that the planning variance is a variance which arises, which involves looking at results based on a revised standard compared to an initial standard. In other words, it's variances that are caused by a change in standards. And the context for a planning variance is that the issue at hand is considered to be outside the area of control of management. So if, for example, management had planned, had done its budgeting based on a price of inputs that were at a standard which hadn't been updated or was completely unrealistic, then clearly variances would occur, and the defect, if you will have occurred because the wrong or outdated or obsolete standard was applied. Therefore, the variance arising from that is attributed to a cause relating to planning. Now, assuming we have the right or relevant standards in place, then we can really compare actual results with budgets that would be based on revised standards. In such a case, if the revised standard is a correct one, then we have realistic expectations of management to be able to control the business within the parameters or within the context of the expectations which are reflected in the revised standards. Any variances arising, therefore, would be termed operational variances, and here we're able then to come to a judgment as to how well management have actually operated the business. So keeping this distinction in mind is critical to an appreciation of these two categories of variances. Then we have something known as Mcdonaldization, which is four elements which define a business that the model for which is based effectively on standardization and volume output. So it's basically a generic description of businesses that, not only fast food business, but businesses that have taken their inspiration from the business model of McDonald's itself. And while we're in on the subject of comparisons, benchmarking is another key concept where an organization learns by comparing what they do with some standard which is presented either internally or externally. So we have different benchmarks to keep in mind. The external benchmarks can be of two types, at least two types. Here are the main ones. Competitive benchmarking would mean that a business is comparing itself with its most effective competitors in the marketplace. So they're taking the best in their class and they're saying, we want to outdo those competitors. And the best way to measure our own performance is to see how did the best do it in our given industry. The functional category of external benchmarking is looking at the functions within a business and comparing or measuring those functions by a presumed best-in-class or best practice comparison. In other words, if you have a mail order house and you have a logistics system and system of transportation, for example, one would want to test the effectiveness of one's transportation network by choosing businesses not in your same industry but in other industries that are presenting what would be considered the best practice on a functional basis. Again, we're looking for relevant comparisons by which to most effectively judge our own performance. The internal benchmarking is one in which one has compares different departments of, let's better said, different similar businesses within one's group. Let's say a network of branches, bank branches, or sales outlets. Take coffee houses, for example, a chain of coffee houses, and comparing one with the other to see who is the best performer among the group, and that should set a standard for the others to aspire to. But it's not the exclusive standard. A company that operates only with internal benchmarks is being a bit too introverted and must not forget that the real test of success has got to measure up against external benchmarks, because after all, one is competing with other companies in the marketplace for the customer's dollar.